So back at it, we're finishing up this animation. So updated video since the last one I had on there was a little blurry and maybe not super clear. So we'll try it one more time. Let's give it a shot. All right, so here's the approach. Okay, first off, here's the original one. So I'll kind of show you where we're going with this. The goal is we're going to put together a few chunks of track. There's a few mates for that. And then we're going to create a slider mate between the train and the tracks. Rack and pinion to create the wheel motion on top of the tracks. All right, let's get started. So first off, I'm going to create a new assembly just so that we kind of have a separated portion of this and potentially less confusing. So I'm going to go train with tracks. I'm going to rename that. Let's start bringing in some parts. So insert. First off, I'll go and do the tracks. And as I bring these in, I'm going to just click on this a few times. So just going to bring in, I don't know, I forgot how many there's on there. Maybe 5. We'll do 5, sure. All right, so there's 5. And then I'll go ahead and bring in the entire train as well. Leave that on the side there. Check mark. Okay, so for this first one, let's go ahead and just for the sake of a little bit of, organization, I'm going to go ahead and move this to the middle. I'm going to right click on the center there and say move to origin so that it's kind of centered like that. And for this very first part that I brought in, it's this one, right click on it, I'm going to hit fix. That way it's locked in place and everything's going to go move around that particular train track. Okay, so a couple ways you can do the mates here. I'm going to go ahead and do fasten mates between them. And I think the easiest is probably like the circle. So that circle, line up with that circle, hit the check, do the next one. Will be this way. This circle, this one. And let's do one more, or sorry, 2 more. Here to here. Oops, got rotated for some reason. You know what? Let me try that one again. One more time. Fasten. I'm going to do this edge to that face. Oh, there it is. Okay, hit the check. Let's try another one. This face to that one. Okay, and then last one is, again, I'm going to zoom in, make sure I get that center of the circle to the center of that circle. All right, so we got the tracks all set up. And again, I'm thinking about this as the train. Oops. Let me make sure. For some reason, this didn't come in as... sorry, my fault. I take that back. We want to not bring this in as individual parts. When I go to insert it, I want to insert the assembly. My fault. Okay, so I want the train assembly. So notice here, I go over to assemblies instead of part studios. Okay, so now when I move this, they should all move together. And then prior video, we already set these up so the wheels will move as needed. Okay, so where this gets a little trickier is I want this train, the backside, to line up to the backside here. So the way the slider works is I'm matching the faces that are going to slide it compared to each other. So I'll come up here, slider mate is what I'm choosing. The mate connector I'm going to choose is this one in the back face. I'm going to choose one of the back faces of my train. So let's go and just choose the middle. Okay, hit solve for now. And right now, if I look at this, it's probably not looking too promising, right? So it looks like it's stuck to the side of it. So first I'm going to rotate it, secondary axis, hit solve again. Okay, looks a little bit closer, but still not exactly. And the way to do this is I'm going to create an offset so that the entire thing moves up and over so that it sits on top of the track. So I'm going to go offset in the X direction. Right now I'm looking here, the X red is to the left. So it's probably going to be negative. And I'm going to just estimate for now, negative, let's see what negative 2 does. Oh, so it does move it to the left. So I'll keep it as a positive. Never mind, positive 2. All right, and then right now I see that that is way too far. Let's try positive 1. Still not quite. I want this to line up right to the middle. And you know what? I might actually even redo this. All right, sorry everyone. Let me try this one more time. I'm going to see if I can find the center of the track. I take it back. Let's stick with that. Let's do an offset. So slider mate between here and here. Oops. Gonna reorient secondary axis, and let's play around with this offset one more time. Okay, so from the left-hand side. Okay, so partly I really just want the distance from the center of this to the middle. So what I could do is if I look at my track, looking at the middle point here to the middle point here, and that minimum distance is 2.089. But I want the horizontal distance, so let me show. Measure distance, negative 1.75 should do the trick. So let's try that. Oops, come back over here. Let's change this to, come back to my slider mate. Let's try 1.75. See where that takes us. That seems to move us a little too much. So let's bring it back. How about just a 0.75? Okay, still not quite. How about a solid 1? Nope. How about 1.1? See what that does. That's pretty good. Actually, that looks pretty centered. And then in the Y direction, I'll bring this up so that those wheels sit up on top. Let's start off with 1, see where that takes us. Not quite. How about 1.5? Let's hit solve, see what that looks like. Okay, we're closer. Looks like the wheel's still digging in there. How about I try a 1.6? Almost, maybe a 1.7. I know this is not a very exact science. I probably could have actually gone and measured this to see. Let's hit solve. Oh, actually 1.6 was probably closer. Let's try that again. 0.6, solve. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so that's sitting on there now. Hit the check mark. Okay, so right now, if I leave it here, I'll notice that the train moves up on top, but the wheels are not moving with it. Okay, so now my final thing I need to set up is called a rack and pinion. So over here is a rack and pinion relation. And this is essentially going to say the rack is going to be the track. So that's what it's going to move on. And then the pinion is going to be the wheel that we want to rotate. And then since our wheels previously, we linked them, they should all move together. Okay, so the first mate I'm going to choose is definitely the slider. The other one I want to set up is inside my assembly. So I'm going to come over here to train assembly. And it should be under the mate features. In particular, I want one of these revolute mates that represent the wheel. So for me, it looks like revolute 1 would work well. And the last thing I need to do is distance per revolution is actually the distance circumference. So every time this rotates, how far we want it to move. So for us, the wheel circumference is approximately 7. I think more specifically, it's about 7.1, if I am correct. And we'll go ahead and check this and see if the wheels are moving in the right direction. If not, we'll hit reverse direction. Okay, so check mark that first. And let's kind of see how we're doing. So if I notice now, every time the wheel rotates. All right, that looks pretty good. It looks pretty accurate. All right, so I'm seeing that as this moves, the wheels are moving on the track. Okay. And then lastly, to create that animation, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come over to my slider mate, right click on it, go to animate. The end value is going to be the total distance. So I think it's about 5 feet. So we'll go 60 inches. The steps is just kind of how many frames per second. So how quickly you want this to move. I'm going to do this to go back and forth, reciprocate. Let's see what this looks like right now. I go play and moving pretty well. All right. Oh, that went a little too far, so maybe I'll change the end value, or you can add more track if you want to do it that way. All right, and that should do it. That's your animation and track assembly.